I walked into the grand ballroom, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor, my eyes scanning the crystal chandeliers that sparkled like a constellation above us. Every table was draped in white linen, adorned with roses and golden candle holders, and the soft hum of a string quartet filled the air. I had imagined this night for weeks. Our anniversary, a celebration of love, laughter, and everything I thought we shared. The anticipation warmed me, a fluttering excitement that made my stomach tighten. Glasses clinked as friends and family greeted us, compliments flowing, laughter wrapping around us like silk. Then, just as I leaned forward to smile at him, he slid a thick envelope across the table. My fingers froze, my heart stuttered, and a quiet gasp escaped me as I read the words on the front, divorce papers. In an instant, the room spun, eyes flicking between us, whispers rising like a wave, and I felt the weight of humiliation settle deep in my chest. The night I had dreamed of became a stage for my most shocking betrayal. I couldn't move. My hands hovered over the envelope as if touching it might erase the words, but they burned into my eyes. Divorce papers. The laughter around us felt distant, like I was underwater, every smile and toast blurring into a haze of shame. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the polished floor beneath me, but all eyes were on me, and the murmurs rippled through the room. How could he do this here, in front of everyone I cared about? My mind raced through every memory, every moment I thought we shared, searching for a hint, a sign that this was coming, and finding nothing. My stomach twisted, my chest tightened, and tears threatened to spill, unbidden and humiliating. I clenched my fists under the table, willing myself to appear composed, but the ache of betrayal settled into my bones. Everyone was watching, and I felt exposed, small, discarded. How had the man I trusted most in the world turned our love and my dignity into a spectacle? I sank into the quiet of our apartment, the door clicking shut behind me like a final sentence. The laughter, the whispers, the shocked faces at the dinner still echoed in my mind, relentless and sharp. I pulled out the photo albums we had taken together, pages filled with smiles I now questioned, vacations I had cherished that suddenly felt like lies. I remembered the subtle ways he had always favored others, laughing at his colleagues' jokes, while my opinions were dismissed, praising my friends for their successes but barely noticing mine, gifting luxuries to someone else while I worked tirelessly to support us. Each memory felt like a pinch, a reminder that perhaps this night was only the culmination of years of neglect. Anger and hurt stirred alongside the ache, and a small, cold ember of resolve began to form within me. Then versus now, love versus betrayal, trust versus humiliation, it all collided. And in that quiet, I started to imagine a way to take back not just my dignity, but the balance of power he thought he held. I called my closest friend, her voice bright and unsuspecting on the other end, and I struggled to hold back tears as I told her what had happened. He, he handed me divorce papers, I said, my voice trembling. Right there, in front of everyone, our anniversary. Can you believe it? She was silent for a moment, and then her gasp matched my own shock. I would have lost it, she said, and I felt a flicker of relief. Someone understood. Someone validated the anger and humiliation gnawing at me. Later, I met my sister for coffee, her eyes wide as I recounted the moment, my hands shaking around the mug. That's unforgivable, she whispered, and I nodded, grateful for her empathy. Every nod, every gasp, every whispered "I'm so sorry" stitched a small sense of solidarity into the raw wound. For the first time since the dinner, I felt seen, not as the wife he discarded, but as a person betrayed, deserving of justice and respect. Their support lit the spark of something stronger, the thought that I could reclaim control, and they would stand with me. I couldn't sleep, the envelope still on the kitchen counter like a beacon of betrayal. I started going through our finances, texts, and emails, anything that might explain the madness of that night. Memories surfaced. Small moments I had brushed off before. The late nights he claimed were work. The mysterious trips. The sly smiles when certain friends entered the room. A flashback hit me. Him laughing at a gala, whispering to a woman I barely knew. The warmth of her hand brushing against his sleeve while I had waited in the car. Invisible. Another memory. Him showing off a new watch. A gift to impress his colleagues, while ignoring my quietly achieved promotion. The contrasts burned. My hard work, my loyalty, my presence, met with disregard. His greed, his arrogance, his need to impress others, celebrated. I dug deeper and found bank statements he thought I would never see, accounts I hadn't known existed, and purchases that screamed excess and secrecy. And then I found it. A hidden investment. A company he had quietly acquired, wealth and power I had no access to, and the realization struck me cold. He hadn't just wanted to end us quietly, he wanted to humiliate me publicly while he flaunted his secret empire. My heart raced. This wasn't just betrayal, it was war. Sitting alone in the study, I traced my fingers over the papers and statements I had uncovered, letting the anger and disbelief simmer into something sharper, something I could use. Every slight, every humiliation he had thrown my way became fuel. I pictured the social circles we moved in, the people who had watched me shrink while he smiled and charmed, and I imagined flipping that dynamic entirely. My mind raced with possibilities, public exposures, subtle financial maneuvers, social triumphs that would make him feel the sting he had inflicted on me. Each idea ignited a thrill, a taste of empowerment that sent shivers down my spine. I replayed the anniversary dinner in my head, seeing it not as a moment of shame, but as the starting point for my comeback. He had underestimated me, ignored my intelligence, and assumed I would crumble. And that was the perfect advantage. Every move I considered was meticulously calculated. Timing, optics, subtlety. The thought of him realizing too late that the woman he had mocked and discarded was now untouchable made my pulse quicken. He has no idea what I'm about to do. And for the first time since the envelope hit the table, I smiled. Not in defeat, but in quiet, growing satisfaction. I started showing up at events, walking into rooms that had once felt like traps with a confidence I had never owned before. The same friends who had whispered behind my back now paused to compliment my dress, my poise, my radiant smile. Every glance from them felt like a small victory, a silent acknowledgement that I was no longer invisible. I reconnected with colleagues I had once helped behind the scenes, their respect now overt, their admiration genuine. Quietly, I reclaimed control of assets he had thought he could manipulate. Subscriptions, memberships, even investments he assumed I wouldn't notice. With each step, the contrast became stark. The woman he dismissed, the wife humiliated, had transformed into someone enviable, magnetic, untouchable. I watched him from the periphery at gatherings, noting the brief flickers of unease in his eyes, the way his charm faltered when our friends lingered on me a little longer. Small victories, subtle shifts in perception, and the quiet thrill of karma began to intertwine. He was noticing, and with every glance, I felt the power I had been denied surge within me. At a charity gala, I found myself standing beside him, a glass of champagne in hand, the crowd buzzing around us. I smiled warmly, engaging acquaintances he had once relied on to bolster his ego. "I heard about your latest venture," I said lightly to a friend of his, my tone casual but pointed. "Sounds like someone's been keeping busy behind the scenes." I watched as whispers spread, his smile twitching ever so slightly, the veneer of control cracking. Later, over dinner, I leaned in, soft and conversational. Funny how some promises don't hold up, isn't it? He laughed nervously, missing the double meaning entirely. Internally, I savored the tension, the satisfaction of seeing him scramble to maintain appearances while I glided through the room with effortless charm. Every interaction was a chess move, calculated, precise, designed to expose the cracks in his polished facade. And yet, the real stage was still ahead, the moment that would leave everyone speechless, including him. I could feel it coming, a gathering where every whispered observation, every subtle glance, would culminate in something irreversible. The anticipation coiled in my chest, sharp and thrilling, like a trap ready to spring. I spent weeks laying the groundwork, every detail calculated to perfection. Invitations were sent to the city's most influential socialites and business magnates under the guise of a networking dinner that he would be unable to resist attending. Every element, the guest list, the timing, the seating arrangements, was orchestrated to maximize exposure and embarrassment, while ensuring I appeared poised and untouchable. I planted subtle hints of his past indiscretions in casual conversations, letting rumors circulate just enough to spark curiosity, never suspicion. My allies played their roles flawlessly, dropping compliments about my success and dropping casual observations about his recent blunders. He arrived, completely unaware, walking into a room that whispered of my ascent and his diminishing influence. I could feel the tension as he noticed every admiring glance directed at me, every eager handshake I received, every nod of recognition that had once been his alone. They didn't know who they were messing with. I smiled silently to myself, knowing that tonight, the balance of power would shift, and the carefully constructed facade he relied on would crumble spectacularly before everyone watching. The room had grown tense with anticipation, though most of the guests didn't yet know the storm that was about to hit. I stood at the head of the table, calm, radiant, every inch the picture of composure, while he fidgeted beside me, his confident mask slipping under the weight of subtle but deliberate provocations I had seeded over weeks. The dinner conversation drifted to a new investment opportunity, one he had boasted about endlessly in private circles. I leaned in casually, voice soft but clear, and said, "Funny. I actually finalized the deal today, in my name." A ripple ran through the room. Gasps, whispers. His eyes darted, panic flashing as he realized that every acquaintance he thought he impressed now saw the truth. He had been outmaneuvered, outshined, and exposed. "Wait. How?" he stammered, a tremor in his voice betraying the embarrassment he had tried so desperately to hide. I smiled faintly, letting the tension linger, savoring the moment. "It's simple," I said, almost gently. "I just stopped letting your arrogance blind me to my own worth." The table erupted into murmurs of admiration for me and disbelief at him. He tried to interject, to recover, but the words faltered, falling flat in the charged air. Friends and colleagues exchanged knowing glances, whispers traveling like wildfire. The man who had humiliated me publicly was now the subject of public scrutiny himself. Each flash of recognition on his face, each twitch of frustration, filled me with a quiet, thrilling satisfaction. I had orchestrated every move, every smile, every conversation to culminate in this moment. It wasn't just revenge. It was validation, justice, and empowerment delivered in equal measure. As he slumped in his chair, defeated and exposed, I felt a rush of relief and triumph, knowing the power had shifted irreversibly. In that room, surrounded by witnesses, the husband who had dared to humiliate me was humbled, and I finally stood, untouchable, in the glow of my own victory. The exhilaration of the evening slowly faded as I returned home, the city lights casting long shadows across the apartment. Alone, I let myself breathe, sinking into a quiet satisfaction that had nothing to do with public applause. For years, I had felt invisible, dismissed, and powerless. Every slight, every betrayal had chipped away at my confidence until I doubted my own worth. But now, in the stillness, I recognized something far more valuable than social validation: my own strength. I had turned humiliation into strategy, despair into action, and betrayal into clarity. The husband who once controlled the narrative no longer had power over me, and that realization filled me with a calm, unwavering pride. I replayed the night in my mind, not as a spectacle of revenge, but as a testament to my growth. The quiet victory of someone who had been underestimated and discarded but emerged untouchable, respected, and fully in control of her life. In that reflection, I finally understood the true weight of triumph. It wasn't about watching him fall, but knowing I had risen. The next few days were a whirlwind of messages, calls, and subtle nods from friends and acquaintances who had witnessed the shift. At brunches and casual gatherings, I was met with warm smiles and soft praise, a quiet admiration that hadn't existed before. People who once overlooked me now sought my opinion, congratulated me on my poise, and lingered just a moment longer, curious about the woman who had transformed humiliation into empowerment. I accepted their recognition with grace, letting their words reinforce not my ego, but my sense of justice and self-worth. Even casual comments, "I can't believe what you did," were met with a polite, knowing smile. Each interaction reminded me that karma had played its part. The man who had tried to shame me was now a cautionary tale, while I moved forward untethered, strong, and validated. The combination of empathy from my circle, moral alignment from my peers, and the quiet satisfaction of revenge brought a sense of closure I hadn't thought possible. I felt seen, respected, and finally free, knowing I had reclaimed my dignity and rewritten the story on my own terms. Sitting in the quiet of my living room, I reflected on everything that had happened: the betrayal, the humiliation, and the carefully measured steps I had taken to reclaim my life. I realized that true strength isn't loud or vengeful. It's knowing your own worth and refusing to let someone else define it. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches lessons we would never learn otherwise: who truly respects us, who underestimates us, and how resilient we can be when pushed to the edge. I thought about viewers who might relate, those who had felt dismissed, overlooked, or humiliated by someone they trusted. To you, I say this: your pain is valid, but it doesn't have to define you. Channel it, plan carefully, and rise. There is power in restraint, in strategy, and in turning injustice into personal growth. Revenge is sweet, yes, but even sweeter is the confidence and clarity you gain when you reclaim control of your life. And in that reclamation, you find not only satisfaction, but a strength that no one can take away. Just when I thought the story had reached its end, a small, quiet revelation reminded me that the balance of power had shifted permanently. While everyone thought the night's events had settled everything, I had quietly secured a position on the board of the very company he had tried to flaunt, a move no one anticipated. The documents were signed, the legalities finalized, and the authority it granted me was subtle but absolute. I could oversee decisions, influence outcomes, and quietly reshape the legacy he had tried to control, all without a single person noticing at first. Occasionally, I would hear whispers in social circles, hints of surprise when he realized his easy dominance no longer existed. It was a secret advantage, a reminder that sometimes the real victories aren't loud. They're calculated, enduring, and invisible to those who thought they had the upper hand. And as I sipped my evening tea, a satisfied smile crossed my face. They had underestimated me, but I was already leagues ahead. The game had changed forever.